I remember the first week of my freshman year. The dorm was a typical, aging brick building with flickering fluorescent lights in the hallways and a perpetual smell of burnt popcorn in the lounge. My roommate, Sarah, seemed nice enough at first, quiet, studious, but friendly whenever we crossed paths. The strangest thing about her was how often she left at odd hours. She'd slip out after midnight and wouldn't come back until morning. She never explained where she went, and I was too shy to ask. One Friday night, I had stayed up late, studying for a test. The corridor was eerily silent, most of the dorm either out partying or asleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard soft footsteps pacing outside our door. Slow, methodical. It felt like they were stopping, then starting again, right by the door frame. I thought maybe it was Sarah, but something about the pattern of those steps felt off. I peered through the peephole, but no one was there. I went back to my desk, heart pounding. I tried to brush it off as nerves from too much caffeine. Then, I heard a faint knock. 3 gentle taps. I called out, "Sarah? Is that you?" No answer. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty, lights buzzing overhead. The air felt cold, somehow heavier than usual. Sarah never came back that night. Morning came, and I realized I hadn't heard her come in at all. By noon, I was worried. I asked a few people down the hall if they'd seen her, but no one had. Our resident advisor checked the sign-in logs. Sarah hadn't signed in or out. Campus security was alerted. The next thing I knew, they were searching the entire building. Here's the part that still haunts me. According to school records, Sarah had withdrawn from the university months before I even moved in. Her name wasn't on the official roster. And her half of the room? It looked lived in, her bed neatly made, her desk stocked with textbooks. But every single personal item, including clothes, was gone. It was as if she'd never existed. To this day, no one can explain it. I moved out of that dorm by the end of the semester, unable to shake the feeling that something, or someone, had slipped through the cracks of reality that night. And I still have nightmares about those footsteps outside my door, pacing back and forth, like they were waiting for me to open it. My sophomore year, I transferred to a different college, hoping for a fresh start. The dorm I ended up in had a reputation for being old, but it had character, arched windows, massive wooden doors, and a community bathroom on each floor. No one liked the bathrooms, though. They were dimly lit, with cracked tiles and squeaky stall doors that never quite locked properly. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up needing the bathroom. My roommate was fast asleep, so I tiptoed out into the hallway. The fluorescent light flickered above me, creating shifting shadows at every step. I could smell the faint odor of bleach and mildew wafting from the bathroom at the end of the corridor. As I entered, I noticed one of the stalls was closed. Normally, that wouldn't be strange, but the rest of the bathroom was empty and silent. I took the stall next to it. That's when I heard a quiet whimper, like someone was crying softly. I froze, pressing my ear closer to the thin partition. A muffled sniffle, then silence. "Hey, are you okay?" I whispered. No response. No movement. I stood there for a moment, heart pounding, waiting. The silence was unnerving, but I decided to mind my own business. I finished up, washed my hands, and called out again, "Hey, do you need help?" Nothing. Just as I was about to leave, I heard the rustling of clothing inside the stall. The door shook violently, like someone was trying to yank it open. I jumped back in terror. The rustling stopped. Everything went dead quiet again. Slowly, I crept toward the stall, my hand trembling as I reached for the door. It was locked. I could see a pair of shoes under the stall door, faded white sneakers, toes pointing directly at me. I remember they were strangely still, as though the person wearing them wasn't even breathing. My fear got the better of me. I ran out into the hallway to find an RA. He followed me back, but by the time we reached the stall, it was empty. No sneakers, no sign of anyone. The door was wide open. The only thing left was a damp, twisted paper towel on the floor, as if someone had been there just moments before. Some say it was the spirit of a boy who had locked himself in that stall decades ago and never came out. I never saw it again, but I felt it, like a weight in the air every time I stepped into that bathroom alone. During winter break of my junior year, most of the student body went home, but I stayed on campus for a part-time job. The dorm was practically empty, only a handful of students scattered across different floors. It was both freeing and unnerving. The quiet was palpable. No music, no chatter, just the hum of the HVAC system and the occasional slam of a fire door in the distance. Because the campus was deserted, the laundry room in the basement was mine alone. I hated that basement, though. It was a maze of long corridors, flickering exit signs, and ancient pipes that hissed and groaned. One night, I headed down around midnight to do my laundry. I could hear the faint drip of water somewhere, echoing through the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed as I walked toward the laundry room door. I loaded my clothes into a washer when I heard it, whispering. It was faint, but I could make out the rhythmic cadence of voices, too soft to be understood. I paused, listening. The whispers seemed to come from behind a locked storage room door. A chill ran down my spine as I realized I was supposed to be the only person down here. I called out, "Hello?" The whispers stopped immediately. My heart hammered in my chest. I hurried to start the washing machine, praying the noise would drown out the eerie silence. Then, footsteps, soft, measured, almost careful not to be heard, but definitely there. I pressed myself against the laundry room wall, peering around the corner. A figure stood at the end of the hallway. They were too far away to see clearly, but I could tell they were facing me, watching. The overhead light flickered again, and in that moment of darkness, the figure vanished. Terrified, I grabbed my laundry basket and ran back up to my room. But the worst part? When I finally mustered the courage to go back and switch my clothes to the dryer, my wet laundry had already been moved, folded neatly in the cart next to the dryer. I never learned who or what did that. Campus security found no signs of a break-in. The caretaker insisted there was no one else staying in the basement. To this day, I can't unhear those whispers echoing in the locked storage room, nor can I explain who folded my laundry so precisely, as if they had all the time in the world. In my senior year, I moved into a newer dorm, hoping for a less haunted experience. Everything seemed normal until one final night before graduation, when my friend Katie and I decided to pull an all-nighter in the common lounge to finish our final papers. The lounge was a bright, airy space with large windows overlooking the campus quad. By 3 a.m., we were the only ones there, sipping lukewarm coffee and typing away on our laptops. It was during one of our breaks when we decided to stretch our legs. The hallway outside was dark and quiet, but we could see a faint light coming from one of the side corridors. Katie squinted. "Are the custodians cleaning this late?" she whispered. We walked closer, following the glow. As we turned the corner, we saw him, a tall figure in a janitor's uniform, just standing there, holding a mop. Except, something about him was off. He stood unnaturally still, eyes cast downward, lips moving like he was talking to himself, only there was no sound. I called out softly, "Hello?" He didn't respond. Then, in a flash, he raised his head. His eyes locked on us. I felt a jolt of cold fear. He slowly lifted a finger to his lips, as if telling us to be quiet. Then he whispered something. It was too faint to hear, but his mouth formed the words deliberately. Before we could step closer, he turned and walked through a door marked "Employees Only." Curiosity got the better of us. We followed, stepping into a dimly lit storage room filled with shelves of cleaning supplies. But he was nowhere to be found. The room was completely empty, and the door we had just come through was locked from the inside. We were trapped. Panic set in as we realized we hadn't heard the man exit, and there were no other doors. After a frantic minute of searching, we found a small side entrance that led back into the hallway. We burst out, our hearts pounding like we'd just run a marathon. We called campus security, but when they arrived, there was no sign of anyone. No footprints, no mob, nothing. And here's the twist. Security informed us that no janitors had been scheduled for overnight shifts for over a week. It was exam period, and they only cleaned in the early mornings. All we know is that Katie and I both saw him, heard him, and I'll never forget the look in his eyes, like he knew more than we did, like we were stumbling into something we shouldn't see. That was my last night in that dorm before I left campus for good. And sometimes, I dream about his face, a silent warning, reminding me that some doors shouldn't be opened. Final thoughts? For unsettling encounters in what should be the safest space for a student, their dorm. Even years later, the memories linger. Rooms that appear lived in by people who officially don't exist. Locked stalls that open to empty spaces. Whispers in the dead of night, footsteps that vanish into shadows, and figures who watch from just beyond the light. There's a reason college legend says you're never truly alone in those old buildings. Maybe it's just overactive imaginations or the stress of finals playing tricks on our minds. Or perhaps some places hold echoes of those who walked those halls before, some friendly, some not so much. Even if you don't believe in ghosts or curses, remember that the scariest stories often come from real events we can't fully explain. And that unresolved feeling of fear, confusion, and disbelief can follow us long after we've left the dorms behind. Because sometimes, the horror never fully goes away, it just waits for the next person to wander into its domain. Thanks for watching. If you've ever experienced something strange in a college dorm, let me know in the comments. And until next time, double check that empty hallway before you turn off the lights. Who knows what might be standing there, waiting for you to notice.